David Rothkopf, so good to see you. Last time I saw you, you were attacking the Swiss art of fondue. You were being extremely rude about Davos.
I apologize. And some of your listeners were like, no, fondue is great. Here's the problem with fondue, besides the goopiness of it and the fact that it'll kill you, is that it's got this terrible German wine in it. And so it takes perfectly good cheese and it makes it taste like, you know, Gewürztraminer or some kind of horrible wine. And I'm just not for it. I'm from New Jersey. Cheese belongs on a submarine sandwich.
Cheese belongs with a little bit of German wine. I like a very dry Riesling. I'm really uncovering those at the moment. However, the point is, we've all forgotten Davos. We've forgotten Venezuela. We've forgotten Greenland and Iceland and all of it. And we've forgotten the Epstein files, which we must not forget. So we'll come back to that. But I want you to explain to us what the hell is happening in Minneapolis right now. A lot of damage control, right? But what is actually going on?
Well, what's actually going on in Minneapolis is happening in Washington, which is that Trump wants to get the money for DHS because he has this big, gigantic budget for DHS, which, if it were a military budget, would make DHS like the third or fourth biggest army in the world. So it's really a ridiculously large amount of money. And what has happened is, we have seen that ICE and Customs and Border Patrol are just a bunch of goons who are murdering Americans. And that has produced a backlash. And it has produced such a backlash that even the usually kind of soft-spined Democratic leadership has said, no, we're not going to fund DHS. This scares the crap out of Trump. And so he's like, okay, let's pull it back a little bit. We'll send Greg Bovino back to his Der Stürmer group meetings in California, and we'll send Tom Homan in because who gets more confidence from Tom Homan, right? Who I have seen referred to online as the bag man, right? This corrupt,
right? The bag man, referring to his alleged taking of cash.
Well, it's not that alleged, right? I mean, it's on video. Anyway, so he's sending him in, and he's sending a message to people saying, "Oh, we're going to pull back." I think the message overnight was they're going to relax what they're doing a little bit, but of course that's all a lie. What they're trying to do is say, go on, pass our budget, and let us get back to our business. Because they're planning to go into Philadelphia, they're going into Maine, they're going into other cities. This idea of occupying American cities, it's not just a casual thing. They've been thinking about this since the BLM demonstrations back in 2020. And they want to do it because it'll produce confrontation, which will let them do the Insurrection Act, which will allow them to send troops into the cities just in time to fuck with the elections. And that's basically what it's about.
Right. So does this give the Democrats the opportunity to do a shutdown?
It does, and I think that's what's going to happen is there'll be some kind of a partial shutdown. The Democrats will approve the parts of the bill except for the DHS parts of the bill. And I think there's going to be a standoff, and I think part of it's going to have to do with a messaging war. Who doesn't love a messaging war, right? The messaging war from the Republicans will be, see, the Democrats are soft on immigration, but of course they're like 2 years behind this because the world has shifted away from their view on immigration. The message from the Democrats is, as it should be, the Republicans are shutting down the government so that they can continue to occupy our cities and trample on the rights of individual Americans. And, depending on how that plays out, that'll depend, that'll influence whether Trump and company come to the table and say, okay, we'll wear body cams, or okay, we won't go beyond the 100-mile border radius that CBP is supposed to operate in, or okay, we'll cooperate with local investigations. Whatever the terms are, they'll try to come up with something that will allow them to say, well, this is better than it used to be. The problem is, unless you get rid of Trump and Miller, none of this is going to change.
Well, I was going to ask you, in the list of people whose heads should roll after 2 deaths of, utterly unthreatening protesters in Minneapolis. What's the hierarchy of people who should be fired? Let's assume that Trump is not going to be fired. But what about Miller? What about Noem? What about Lewandowski? I mean, Bovino's been moved over, as you say, back to his bunker in California. But
Well,
the aspects of the policy?
first of all, with respect, let me push back on the premise a little,
Right.
because it's not just 2 people who are shot. A dozen people have been shot. People have been strangled to death in these places. Little kids have died. A little girl who needed sickle cell treatment had died in these places. Thousands of people have been maltreated. 1,000 people reportedly are missing who were sent to Alligator Alley. So there are rife human rights abuses here. So that goes to answering the question by saying, yeah, all of them.
Well,
Holman should go. Bovino should, go to his retirement. Noem should go, and you even have 2 Republican senators, Tom Tillis and Lisa Murkowski, saying we need to have Noem go. And of course, then what does that produce? Well, it produces that great thing that we see in Washington a lot, but that you also saw in the movie Nuremberg and in the post-Nazi Germany, where Kristi Noem's response is, "I was just following orders."
Right.
It was Trump
orders.
Trump and Stephen. I was just doing what Trump and Stephen said to me to do. So you can just imagine Corey Lewandowski whispering in her ear, "Look, the only way to save yourself is to make sure that they know you'll take them down." And that's where it gets complicated. But if I was going to say one person would be a sign that Trump was serious about change, it's Miller. Because Miller is the master architect. He's the guy everybody in the White House calls the prime minister. He is a malevolent character from a horror movie who has no redeeming qualities. Unless he goes, this stuff is going to continue.
So do you think it's possible he would go? I mean, the one thing this is doing, in the most cynical view of all, is it's keeping attention away from the Epstein files, which we know is the thing that unnerves Donald Trump, perhaps more than anything else, even more than watching 2 people shot and repeatedly played on a loop on television all weekend, which is why he finally roused himself to try and do something about this.
Yeah, where somebody roused him, maybe with those kind of paddles or whatever it is they use to get him up out of bed in the morning.
But Melania, maybe it was Melania, because she needed him out of bed and in his black tie for the Saturday night.
Well, wasn't that disgusting?
Well, I mean,
somebody is gunned down, murdered in the street by 2 officers who shot this guy in the back on videotape. And Trump and Melania's response is, well, let's do a black tie screening of this horrible vanity movie that we've made about this horrible woman. And they did it. And, Tim Cook of Apple.
What a shame that is.
It is. They showed up. They had hors d'oeuvres. And they said, oh, you're so wonderful, Melania. Well, this guy's body lay on a slab in the morgue in Minneapolis.
And what's so fascinating about the video is you see the other members of ICE after the shooting starts running away because they know it's bad. They know.
First they counted the holes they made in him.
Right.
And then they ran away. These people, these people are awful people for whom no normal employment is available. These are the people who are hired for the qualities that you normally try to keep people out of society for. And I think that's becoming readily apparent. And frankly, some of the people who committed these crimes, who did these shots, these were well-trained CBP officers. The training now for ICE and CBP is down to 6 weeks. And they're taking people off the street who are, Proud Boys and members of other militias and have criminal records.
And the fact they're masked as well means that you just know they're up to no good. Why do you need to wear a mask if you're doing something?
Well, and did you see this video? There's this video the other day in which this guy is threatening this person and saying, either, erase the video or I will erase you.
Ugh.
I mean, so
I suppose we can console ourselves with the fact that Tim Cook makes some of the phones that were being used to record this. He
no
put out a statement, actually, that the Wall Street Journal carried, saying that, he was very upset by what happened in Minneapolis, but clearly
bullshit.
not upset enough.
Bullshit.
No, I mean, he's clearly responding to public.
First of all, he was running the, slave run factories in China where the phones are made in the first place. Secondly, what does he do by showing up to and celebrating the Trumps in the wake of this murder in the street? He's saying it's okay. And the whole, this sort of establishment of these tech bros and the billionaires around Trump, that's what they're saying. They're saying, it's okay, buddy. Kill whoever you want. We'll still have your back so long as you do the deals we want you to do, have deals. This is how immoral political leaders get and maintain power, because the people who write the checks keep writing the checks and saying, hey, I love it. We saw that the head of OpenAI gave $25 million to Trump this past year, even as he could see what he was doing. We got to get rid of Miller and Trump and stuff. But I got to tell you, unless the American people hold the tech bros and the finance bros and the other people who are writing these checks and making MAGA possible and validating MAGA and excusing what MAGA did, unless they hold them accountable, unless there is a big business penalty for them, this is going to go on and on long past the day that, Trump is moldering in the grave.
Trump is moldering in the grave.
Yeah, that's from an American, John Brown's body.
I know, John Brown's body lay moldering in the grave. We used to sing that in the UK too when I was
Did you?
So, David, what are your plans for, of course, the big event, the big cultural event this week taking place at the Kennedy Center, the opening of the Melania, the documentary? We mentioned that she had a black tie screening on Saturday night. Did we mention that it was attended by Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple? I think we did. And then
did we mention that they can't sell tickets for it? So, like in the UK, they're like doing showings, and I think they sold one ticket for it.
They've already started showing it, have they? I thought it didn't open worldwide until Friday. Global release.
There's advanced ticket sales or something, and there's just no demand. I don't have to do it. You know why I don't have to go?
Why don't you?
Besides the fact that it would make me throw up, that is that I can listen to your Melania impression.
You can listen to my Melania impression. We must unify in these times that her husband has put together.
Yeah, but I love that. First of all, you're great at that, but secondly,
thank you, David.
No, it's
appreciate. Unify. We must unify.
But think about that. This dim woman, who has made her way through life through God knows how. We're not allowed to talk about that. But this dim woman thought, well, I will intervene. I will offer my views to America and say, let's have unity. Let's come together, as though the person that she is supporting, sleeping with, and who is supporting her, financially, wasn't the one responsible for it. There are not two sides to this. There's a bad guy doing bad things to the American people, and she's not sleeping with him every night. In fact,
I don't think she's living at the White House anymore, is she?
I don't think she is. You have a whole other podcast on that.
We do, actually. I was thinking, we have been covering her fairly doggedly, actually, and it does appear that she's not actually living in the White House. And when she turns up at the White House, the staff treat her as if she's a guest, but she's a guest that cannot be annoyed. And according to my other podcast co-host, Michael Wolff, she is furious this week because she has been overshadowed. This was supposed to be Melania's week. It's the big global rollout of her movie, for which she got paid $40 million and 70% of the back end. This is Jeff Bezos's enormous, how can I put this, suck up to Donald Trump.
But
And it's not going as well as they'd hoped.
But it's not a suck up. It's corruption. It's a payoff. It is a $40 million bag, like a kava bag full of money that Tom Homan received. It's a $40 million bag full of money that was given for no reason at all to the president and his wife.
Well, I think there was a reason, wasn't there?
No, is to buy favor, is to get contracts for his company, is to be seen as a powerful person in America. He's buying influence, and if this happened in some other distant corner of the world, and some guy walked in with a briefcase full of cash and handed it to the leader, we'd go, that's corruption. But here, that's capitalism. It's
okay,
beautiful.
I'm just interrupting you because I've finally got to see some of the comments people are leaving. And there's a brilliant one here by Alexandra Sete. Miller reminds me of the child snatcher from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Do you remember that movie? The child catcher in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is one of the most frightening things. It was a little guy that would go, lollipops, lollipops, and he had a little cage. And then the minute the child jumped into the cage, the signs for the lollipops fell away and you realized he'd been caught. It was the most sinister, frightening thing that haunted my early childhood.
Well, you should have focused on Truly Scrumptious. You should have focused
Truly
on
Scrumptious, you're truly scrumptious.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And more people will show up for these Daily Beast lives if we do more, singing. But
I'm not sure they will, but there's also a good point here from someone whose name is Asynchronicity, saying ICE is domestic terrorism.
It is. That is. You are exactly right. Asynchronicity, or Mr. Synchronicity, or Ms. Synchronicity. But you're exactly right. Trump and Miller said, well, these people in the streets are domestic terrorists. Those people are heroes. We owe them a lot, because the terrorists are the federal forces who are trying to scare Americans into giving up their rights and remaining silent and not criticizing the government. And what the people in Minneapolis have done, nobody has done in the whole history of Trump and Trumpism, is they've stood up and they said, no, we're going to defend our rights. And we are going to do it even at peril of death. And Alex Pretty, went to a memorial service for Renee Nicole Good. He knew that these people were potentially going to kill the watchers like him. And he showed up anyway. And he stood up to them anyway. He knew the risk. And the message that the people of Minneapolis, and by the way, Bruce Springsteen just put out a song today that he wrote last night, apparently, called "The Streets of Minneapolis."
Really? Wow! Wow!
The reality is that the song that he put the song out because these people have realized that this is what it takes. Frankly, the world has started to realize it. Europe, Mark Carney of Canada, they said, we're standing up. We're not going to be bullied anymore.
Right.
And the people of Minneapolis said, no, you can't threaten us. Your guns won't threaten us. Your threat of jail won't threaten us. Your bullying tactics won't threaten us. This is no longer about abstractions like constitutional law. This is about our rights. This is about our communities. This is about our lives. And we're going to fight back. And all of a sudden, we were reminded that in the U.S. system of government, the president's not the boss. People are the boss.
Well, in theory, the people are the boss, and the people vote in Congress, right? And Congress has disappeared on us. I mean,
first of all, the Republicans in Congress are complicit. Okay, so they haven't disappeared. They're there. They are helping them. But the Democrats have been a little somnolent up until now. But, there are some signs, like 2/3 or 3/4 of the Democrats in the House have said that they want to impeach Kristi Noem. The Republican margin in the House is only 2 people. So the reality is that, it's not impossible that you could get, if they keep pushing this, to the point where Kristi Noem gets impeached. by the House.
But you would still have to have the Senate ratify that.
Yeah, but look, we know that the Senate is unlikely to do that, although Tom Tillis and Lisa Murkowski and Rand Paul have all been Republicans who've said no, Murkowski must go, no must go. But as we know, an impeachment then requires investigation, and articles of impeachment are drawn up, and this will put a lot of focus onto Trump that he doesn't want to have, and particularly in an election year, where it's going to reveal that this administration has actually decided to invade America, to attack American cities.
Yeah.
That's the punchline here. And in fact, a lot of people who are following this may not have noticed, but in the past few days, the administration released their national defense strategy. And their national defense strategy, normally this is something that focuses on foreign enemies and so forth, but they have said, no, we're going to shift our assets of our military to deal with threats closer to home. But what is that? That is them saying that they are preparing to use the U.S. military in the streets of the United States. And the only reason that, Department of War can, this bro that they have put in charge of this massive bureaucracy and the most powerful military in the world, the only reason Hegseth is there is to say, yes, boss, you may send troops into American cities. I'll help make it happen. And we know it's true because right after Alex Preddy was shot, Hegseth, who has nothing to do with this stuff, offered his opinion that, these people need to stand down.
American boy doll because of all his accessories. That's what I call him, because he's got his stars and stripes pocket handkerchief, his stars and stripes socks. He's just a very...
He's a ridiculous figure who has no business running the Department of Defense.
Well, I think he knows that too, actually, which is why he pulls in all the generals, the 3 and 4 star generals, and hectors them on being overweight, and then, slurps from his coffee as he's talking to them. A remarkable character. But ICE is about to go into Portland, Maine, having been kicked out by a judge of Portland, Oregon, and also into Philly. How do you think local politicians, governors are going to deal with it? So you've got Janet Mills, who's exiting the governorship of Maine because she's running for Senate at the end of her term. And you've got Philadelphia, you've got Josh Shapiro, right?
Well, you do, but you also, for example, you have a statement that's being put out today by a bunch of DAs. Because, of course, when federal officials break the law at the state and local level, they can be prosecuted. This notion that J.D. Vance and others have put out that they have something called absolute immunity is ridiculous, and they will be prosecuted, and those people will make a difference. But I also think, the spirit of Minneapolis, I don't mean to overstate it, but I think the spirit of Minneapolis is going to spread across the country. And you're going to have community groups going out, videotaping ICE, videotaping CBP, pushing back, saying that they should leave, standing up. And if you take that, and then you've got strong mayors and strong DAs and strong governors pushing back, I think we're going to reach a point of standoff. Now the question is, what does Trump, what does Miller do then? Do they declare the Insurrection Act? Do they use that as their excuse for intervening in the cities and not disrupting the elections? Is this what they want? Well, some people, Governor Walz has said, well, that's why we shouldn't, don't do too much in the streets. Well, that's wrong. That's just wrong. People need to show that we are not going to tolerate this anymore, even if it means them sending troops into the city, even if that happens.
Okay, interesting. Is it time for a march on Washington? I mean, I know that No Kings protests are happening all over the country, but is it time for a large demonstration on DC so Trump can understand the scale of this?
Yeah, or a national strike, I think, is another idea that is a good idea. I think,
Well, you can't go on strike. I'm not letting you go on strike, David.
yeah,
We're not going on strike.
no, I would, with the Beast will never go on strike, and I certainly could not afford, frankly, to go without my Beast salary. But I think from the point of view of the country, what we need to see, and this is going to really be key, is that the momentum to push back grows, that the support
Mhm.
for pushing back grows, that Trump can't, weasel his way out of this by getting rid of Bovino or doing some other little thing. And that there has to be pressure on this front. Just like you got to keep pressure on the Epstein front, just like you got to keep pressure on the corruption front. The people of the United States have a job this year. It's a job they failed to do in 2024. And the job is to say, no more. We've seen what this will do. We've seen the damage that this will do. We are standing up for ourselves. And it's going to require more, not just because of protests, but also because there is going to be a massive effort by the government. Today, apparently, the FBI went into the election records of Fulton County, Georgia, right? We're going to see a lot of messing with our electoral system.
Mhm.
And people who want to vote are going to have to plan to vote, have their papers in order, show up early, help organize other voters. So there's a lot of work. This is going to be probably the um, the year that being an American citizen requires the most of us of any year that we've experienced in our lives.
Wow, a chill just went down my spine when you said that. Do you think that this is also an opportunity for Democrats and they are failing to seize it right now?
I mean, first of all, I don't like to characterize stopping the killing or the human rights abuses as an opportunity. I think it's an obligation of Democrats to stand up and to resist this. And I think too many Democrats have viewed this as a continuation of politics as usual.
Mm-hmm.
And have just sort of said, well, we'll negotiate, we'll get a little of this and a little of that. But, I wrote a piece on my Substack yesterday about this in which I said, sometimes what we're dealing with is not politics, it's just evil. And what the Trump administration is doing, whether it's this or whether it's withholding medicine from kids around the world. 600,000 people have died in the past year because we cut back on AID, because Doge wanted to cut back on AID. 400,000 were kids. 14 million people are estimated to die because of that. Thousands will die because of cutbacks to cancer research and cutbacks to environmental programs and so on and so forth. And so the point is, there is something going on here that's evil. You can't negotiate with evil. If you say, well, I'll meet you halfway, that's a victory for evil. This is one of those moments where you have to stop it and you have to hold those people accountable. And I think the penny is dropping. I think some Democrats, even those who've been reluctant to step up, are showing signs. I'm hopeful, showing signs that they may be taking this with a new degree of seriousness.
Yeah, I
The
mean,
dead people in the street will do that to you.
yeah, I mean, it is extraordinary. And props to Ilan Omar yesterday for going after the guy that shot whatever it
Oh
was.
man, absolutely right. This,
Incredible the way she leapt after him. And then I saw a report today that he was firing apple cider vinegar at her. Which is a new.
look, this was just some MAGA moron, right? But the thing, people are revealed in these instances, and her immediate instinct was not to hide behind the lectern. It was to go straight at the guy. I mean, she was like, I'm going to go hit this guy in the face. And I was like, oh man, I love that. She is not afraid of anything.
No,
This woman is a real hero. She must be getting countless death threats from these people. The president of the United States has said, I'm going to investigate. She's doing all these. She's not. She's just a member of Congress doing their job. But she's got guts. And that is the spirit of Minneapolis. And that was her point after this guy was dragged away, is that they were strong. They were Minnesota strong.
Minnesota strong. Well, David, there are lots of people saying how much they love hearing you. The Karen White says, I love when David Rothkopf is on. He's fun and I get his personality. I'm glad she does because I've still
don't
understand it. Yeah, but David, it's always good to have your wisdom, your experience from being the editor of Foreign Policy magazine, your experience working for the Commerce Department under Clinton. I'd love to have you back and discuss whether or not the Clintons should appear before the Oversight Committee on the.
That would be a short discussion.
Short discussion.
They should.
They should just get it over.
Like, stop distracting. Don't fall for the gimmick. Go testify. Be done with it. Move on. The Epstein story is about the victims. The Epstein story is about the men who are protected. It is not about the Clintons, and it shouldn't be about it.
All right. Well, David, thank you for joining us for YouTube Live. Thank you to everybody for your comments. I'm still trying to get the tech and I'm still trying to get the skill of talking to someone else and reading people's comments. There are a lot of comments saying ICE is state terrorism, ICE is domestic terrorism, and how much they love David Rothkopf. Someone who calls themselves She Who Must Be Obeyed One, love Rothkopf, so insightful and wise.
Thank you, Ms. She Who Must Be Obeyed. I couldn't agree with you more.
David, we will see you back on the Daily Podcast soon. If you have been, thank you for joining us, and you can watch us later when we put this up for other people who were at work and unable to watch us.